I never imagined that the greatest danger to my grandson would come from inside our own family. She was supposed to protect him. She was supposed to love him. But instead, she almost killed him. And if I hadn't stepped in that day, my 6-year-old grandson would not be alive today. This is a true story. My name is Margaret. I'm a mother and a grandmother. Family has always been the center of my world. My son, Daniel, was always a gentle boy, almost to a fault, kind-hearted, trusting, always seeing the best in people. When he met Emily, I truly believed he had found the love of his life. She was everything a mother could hope for in a daughter-in-law, polite, soft-spoken, and always, always smiling. She charmed everyone she met. But I've learned since then that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who smile the most. Their smiles are a mask, a perfectly crafted illusion to hide the darkness underneath. And we were all completely fooled. At first, their marriage seemed like a fairy tale. Emily was so efficient, so capable. She took control of everything: the house, the finances, even Daniel's social life. He was happy to let her. He'd always been a bit passive, and she seemed to thrive on being in charge. We saw it as a sign of a strong partnership. She was organizing his life, making things easier for him. But looking back, it wasn't organization. It was control. Slowly, methodically, she began to push people away. Friends who used to come over for game nights stopped visiting. Daniel's weekly calls to me and his father became less frequent, then stopped altogether. When I'd ask him about it, he'd say, "Oh, you know how it is. Mum, we're just so busy." Emily was always in the background, a silent presence during our calls, and I could feel her influence. And then, when my beautiful grandson Leo was born, everything changed. The last piece of her puzzle fell into place, and the walls around my son's family grew higher and thicker. Leo was a bright, happy child, curious, full of laughter, and absolutely loving. He was the light of our lives. But every time I visited, I started to notice something strange, something unsettling. He was always quiet around his mother. Not the respectful quiet of a well-behaved child, but a tense, watchful silence. He seemed to monitor her every move, her every expression, too. He would flinch when she raised her voice, even if she was just calling him from another room. And sometimes, I saw bruises. Faint purple marks on his little arms, or a small, unexplained bruise on his cheek. Emily always had an explanation ready. He fell while playing outside. He's just so clumsy. You know how boys are. Margaret, you worry too much. Daniel, my trusting son, would just nod along, believing every word. But a grandmother knows. A grandmother feels it in her bones. And deep down, a cold dread was starting to grow in my heart. I knew something was very, very wrong. My concerns made me a threat. Emily began limiting my visits. First, it was polite excuses. "Leo has a cold. We don't want you to catch it." Then it became more direct. "He needs to stick to his routine. Your visits disrupt it." Finally, she accused me of meddling. She said I was trying to turn Leo against her, that I was spoiling him and undermining her authority as a mother. I tried to talk to Daniel, to make him see, but he was completely under her spell. He defended her, telling me I was overreacting, that I needed to trust his wife. Then one day, she banned me from the house completely. No more visits. No more phone calls with Leo. Nothing. I was completely cut off from my grandson. That's when my fear turned into pure, cold panic. I knew he was in danger, and I was powerless to help him. The days that followed were the longest of my life. I called, I texted, I even drove by the house, but the curtains were always drawn. It was a fortress, and I was on the outside. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from a neighbor. She was hesitant, but her voice was shaking. She said she'd heard screaming from the house. A child's scream. A scream for help. That was it. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think. I just acted. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to the house, my heart pounding against my ribs. When I arrived, the front door was locked, but I could hear it. I could hear Leo crying inside. A desperate, terrified sound that no child should ever make. Too. He was screaming for help. I rattled the doorknob, shouting his name, shouting for Emily to open the door. There was no answer. Just the sound of my grandson's cries. I knew I couldn't wait. I broke in. What I saw in that bathroom still haunts my nightmares. The scene plays over and over in my mind. Emily had locked Leo in the bathtub. The water was rising fast, nearly to the brim. Free was slipping, his little hands clawing at the smooth porcelain, trying to keep his head above water. He was panicking, choking, his eyes wide with terror. And she was just standing there, a few feet away, watching. Not a flicker of emotion on her face. Just watching him struggle. I screamed a sound I didn't know I was capable of making. I rushed past her, pulled my grandson from the water, and held him tight. He was limp, coughing, and barely breathing, too. The rest is a blur of flashing lights and sirens. Paramedics arrived. Police followed. Emily, ever the actress, immediately began to cry, claiming it was all a terrible accident. She said she'd just stepped away for a moment. But the truth has a way of coming out. The neighbor who called me testified about the screaming she'd heard before. Other neighbors came forward, speaking of times they'd heard shouting and strange noises. Doctors at the hospital confirmed that Leo's old bruises were consistent with a pattern of abuse, not clumsiness. And finally, my son Daniel saw the woman he married for who she really was. The illusion shattered. The monster was revealed. Emily was arrested. Justice, slow but steady, began its work, and Leo survived. He came to live with us, with me and my husband. The first few months were difficult. He was quiet, withdrawn, and he had terrible nightmares. But slowly, with patience, with therapy, and with an ocean of unconditional love, he started to heal. Today, he laughs again, a full, joyous sound that fills our home. He sleeps peacefully through the night. He plays in the backyard without a single care. He is safe. He is loved. He is finally free to just be a child. If you ever feel that something is wrong, even if you can't explain it, please listen to that feeling. Trust your instincts. We are taught to be polite, to not interfere, to not make waves. But silence protects abusers. Speaking up protects children. I didn't want to believe the truth about my daughter-in-law. It was too ugly, too painful. But I trusted my instincts, and it saved my grandson's life. Speak up, save a life. Thank you for listening.